What really happens when you masturbate too much? You feel tired after doing it, empty, unmotivated, no longer excited by the things you once loved. And worst of all, you wonder if something's wrong with you. Masturbation is natural. In fact, many sexual health experts say it's a normal part of human behavior. But what happens when you do it too much? Not once a week, not a few times a month, but every day, multiple times a day, in silence, and you can't stop, not because you're turned on, but because you're anxious, bored, lonely, because you don't know what else to do with the emptiness. Have you ever planned your whole day just to make sure you had time to do it? Have you skipped work, avoided people, or even turned down a relationship just to protect this habit? If so, you are not alone. Studies from Harvard, Stanford, and top neuroscience experts are sounding the alarm. When your brain becomes too dependent on dopamine from this habit, your reward system goes off track. You lose focus. You lose energy. And worst of all, you lose connection with real people. The problem is not masturbation. The real problem is dependence. Just like sugar, caffeine, or your phone. Any behavior that brings quick pleasure but no lasting meaning can quietly damage your nervous system over time. So let's ask the hard questions. How much is too much? Why do you keep doing it even when you don't want to? And most important, how do you take back control without guilt, without shame, and without failing yourself? In this video, you'll get the answers, not from judgment, but from science, from doctors, and from real-life experience. This is the guide you deserve, and maybe the one no one ever gave you. When is it too much? Everyone is different. There is no universal number, no exact limit. But there's one truth you can't ignore. When a habit begins to control your day, it's no longer a choice. It's a dependency. So, how do you know if you're masturbating too much? Here's what doctors and mental health experts say. If you're doing it multiple times a day, every day, and your body feels tired, your muscles feel weaker, your mind feels cloudy, that's the first red flag. If you start planning your schedule around it, if you cancel plans, if you lie just to have alone time, that's another sign. If you feel distracted, irritated, or emotionally flat until you do it, that's not normal. That's withdrawal. Your brain is now chasing a chemical reward, not human connection. During the pandemic, researchers saw this pattern everywhere. People weren't masturbating out of desire anymore. They were doing it out of boredom, out of stress, out of loneliness. And that's the trap. What starts as comfort becomes a cycle. You feel low. You masturbate. You feel good for a moment, then it fades. And now you feel lower than before. That's not pleasure. That's dependency. Dr. Justin Lee Miller, a leading sexual health researcher at the Kinsey Institute, calls this emotional substitution when you use a physical act to avoid facing psychological pain. And the more you use it, the more your baseline happiness drops. What does that mean? It means you need the habit just to feel normal, not happy, just normal. Just like a smoker who needs a cigarette to start the day, or someone who can't focus without scrolling social media, but you're not broken. Your brain is just doing what it's designed to do. Seek reward and avoid pain. And right now, Masturbation is your shortcut, but shortcuts always come with a cost. So here's the question. Is this really giving you relief? Or is it slowly stealing your energy, your clarity, your control? Let's take it deeper. Let's talk about what happens inside your brain. When this habit becomes a silent addiction, what happens inside your brain? Let's talk about what really happens in your brain. Not just the moment you feel good, but everything after that. When you masturbate, your brain releases dopamine. It's the reward chemical. It makes you feel focused, excited, alive. It's the same chemical that lights up when you win money, eat sugar, or get a social media. But here's the problem. The more you stimulate that system without balance, the less sensitive it becomes. It's called desensitization. Over time, your brain needs more to feel the same. More intensity, more stimulation. More often, what used to feel exciting now feels normal. And what used to feel normal now feels empty. This is how compulsive behavior forms. And your brain starts adapting. It says, if we don't get this rush, something's missing. And that's when dopamine stops being your friend and starts being your master. According to Dr. Anna Lemke, professor of psychiatry at Stanford, the more you chase pleasure, the more pain you create. You reset your threshold, and everything else in life feels dull. This is why you feel drained after, not just physically, but emotionally, why your motivation drops, why your attention span shrinks, why real-world goals feel harder to pursue. Your brain is stuck in a loop, a quick fix loop. You feel off. So you seek a dopamine spike. You get the spike, then crash. And now you need it again. This is not addiction in the extreme sense, but it's a dopaminergic imbalance, and if left unchecked, it leads to apathy, low drive, even symptoms of depression. And here's the worst part. It's invisible. No one sees it. You still go to work. You still talk to people, but inside, you feel dull, disconnected, lost. You don't need to hit rock bottom to know something's wrong. Sometimes, all it takes is noticing the silence in your mind. After the high fades, so what happens when this loop starts affecting your real relationships? Let's go there. Because for many, the next symptom is withdrawal from intimacy. When you start preferring pleasure over people, at first, you don't notice it. You tell yourself, it's just easier this way. You say, I'm tired. Or, we're not in sync right now. But deep down, something has changed. You used to crave connection. Now you crave convenience. You used to enjoy closeness. Now you prefer control. No awkward moments. No pressure. No rejection. Just you is your screen. And a predictable outcome. This is when masturbation starts replacing intimacy. Not just physically, but emotionally. Dr. Trish Lee, a cognitive neuroscientist, calls this neurodivergence from intimacy. The brain gets so used to artificial stimulation, it no longer reacts the same way to real human touch. Your partner leans in. You feel nothing. You delay sex. You avoid it. You get used to quick highs without emotional depth. And then the questions come, why am I not in the mood? Why does it feel like work? Why does sex seem boring, even with someone I love? It's not that you've changed, it's that your reward system has. Your brain now expects the instant gratification of solo pleasure Not the slow build of real intimacy, but real intimacy takes presence, patience, vulnerability. And if you've trained your brain to chase speed over depth, that connection becomes harder to feel. And this isn't just about relationships, it's about how you relate to people in general. You become more irritable, less emotionally available, more withdrawn. Why? Because part of you is already satisfied, but not fulfilled. There's a difference. One is physical, the other is human. And when that human part goes unfed, you don't just lose desire, you lose something far deeper. You lose meaning. So ask yourself this: are you avoiding people because you're tired, or because you found a shortcut that feels safer but leaves you emptier? Let's break this cycle. In the next part, we'll explore the hidden emotional cost of chasing pleasure to escape pain and why it never really works. The emotional crash. When pleasure becomes a prison, it feels good for a moment. You close the door, you find release, and for a few minutes, the noise fades, the stress disappears, the tension melts, but then it comes back stronger, heavier, quieter, but louder in your chest. You start to feel it. The crash, the guilt, the shame, the voice in your head whispering, "Why did I do that again?" And here's the hard truth: you didn't do it for pleasure. You did it for escape. Dr. Gabor Mate, a world-renowned addiction expert, explains it clearly. The question is never why the addiction, but why the pain. Most people don't over-masturbate because they're obsessed with sex. They do it because something else inside is being ignored. Loneliness, anger, anxiety, boredom, fear, a deep need for connection that isn't being met. And here's the trap: the more you use pleasure to avoid pain, the more the pain grows in silence. Because it's not being heard, it's not being faced, it's being buried. Again and again, under a temporary fix. This leads to what psychologists call compulsive cycles. You feel low, you seek release, you feel guilty, you feel lower, and the loop begins again. Over time, your self-worth begins to slip. You feel less in control of your day, less connected to your body, less proud of your choices. And yet, you don't know how to stop. You say things like, "I'll stop next week. This was the last time. I'm just stressed right now." But the truth is, you're afraid to sit in silence, afraid to feel what's underneath, afraid of what might come up if you just stop. This isn't weakness. It's human. You're not the only one. Millions of people, men and women, I feel this same silent battle, but few talk about it, and even fewer get help. But here's what you need to hear. This is not your identity. This is a pattern, and patterns can change. So if you've been using this habit to avoid your emotions, it's time to try something different. Let's talk about how to break the cycle. Not through willpower, but through awareness, redirection, and real healing. How to break the loop. Reclaiming your mind and body. You don't break a cycle by force. You break it by replacing it. Not with shame, not with guilt, but with something more meaningful, more real. The first step: awareness. You can't change what you won't face. Track your triggers. When do the urges hit hardest? Is it boredom? Stress? Late at night when you feel alone? Write it down. You'll start to see a pattern, because it's never just about sex. It's about emotional regulation. It's about control. It's about escape. The second step, limitation, not elimination. Trying to go cold turkey can backfire. You don't need to erase the habit overnight. You need to slowly regain control. Set a rule. No more than 2 or 3 times a week. Set a time. Never after midnight. No more phone in bed. No more mindless scrolling through content that feeds the urge. The third step, redirect your energy. The urge doesn't go away. It transforms. Channel it into something active. Work out. Walk. Journal. Create something. Call a friend. Even 10 minutes of movement can shift your brain chemistry. According to Dr. Andrew Huberman, a neurobiologist at Stanford, dopamine is not just about reward. It's about pursuit. The act of doing something difficult also increases dopamine, not just the pleasure that comes after. So chase something that builds your identity. That strengthens your mind. That redefines your relationship with pleasure. The fourth step, reconnect, start opening up, not on social media, but with one real person, a friend, a therapist, a support group, someone who can remind you you're not your habit, because silence keeps the loop alive. But conversation starts to set you free. And finally, give yourself grace. You will relapse. You will fall back sometimes. But every time you choose awareness over impulse, you're rewiring your brain, you're building strength, and you're proving that pleasure doesn't control you. You control your attention, your choices, your future. In the next part, let's talk about how this journey can actually elevate your relationships, your energy, and your entire sense of masculinity or identity, not through suppression, but through transformation, from addiction to connection, transforming sexual energy into strength. Your sexual energy is not the enemy. It's your power. It's your drive. It's the force that built empires, wrote symphonies, and shaped revolutions. But only when it's directed. When it's unconscious, it controls you. When it's conscious, it empowers you. And that's the shift from reaction to intention, from escape to creation. This energy you've been using to chase relief, you can use it to build something, to move your body, to focus your mind, to connect with someone in a way that isn't rushed or hidden. In ancient philosophies, from Taoism to yoga, sexual energy was never meant to be wasted. It was meant to be cultivated, stored, redirected. Modern science is starting to catch up. When you retain this energy, even for short periods, your testosterone rises. Your focus sharpens. Your motivation increases. Your posture changes. You walk into a room differently, not because you're suppressing desire, but because you're no longer leaking it. Think of it like fire, uncontrolled. It burns everything down. Controlled. It forges steel. You don't need to reject pleasure. You need to master it. And here's the truth. Most people never hear your body was never meant to live in constant release. It was meant to build tension. Hold it. Transmute it. Every time you choose to hold that urge, not repress it, but hold it, you build resilience. You train your nervous system. You become less reactive, more centered, more powerful. You're no longer just a consumer of pleasure. You become a source of presence. And that changes your relationships. People feel it when you're grounded. You don't need to impress. You don't need to chase. You radiate something stable, controlled, clear. That's not weakness. That's strength. And it starts with one choice: to stop running from your energy and start directing it. In the final part, we'll leave you with one core message, something no one teaches you, but every man and woman needs to hear about reclaiming control, rebuilding identity, and walking with quiet confidence again. Your power is yours again. You were never broken. You were never weak. You were just using power the wrong way. Now, you know the truth. Your body isn't the problem. Your mind isn't the problem. The real problem was silence, shame, isolation, and habits you didn't even realize were controlling you. But now you see it, and that changes everything. You've felt the crash. You've lived the loop. You've tasted the hollow victory that pleasure brings when it's not earned. And now you get to choose something better. Not because you hate the old you, but because you're done hiding from your potential. You're ready to feel strong again, clear again, connected again. This journey isn't about never touching yourself again. It's about never letting that habit define your worth, your energy, or your identity. You are more than an impulse. You are more than a moment of release. You are a force, and when you learn to hold that force, to master it, to direct it into movement, into presence, into purpose, that's when the shift happens. That's when the world feels your energy, not through noise, but through stillness. Because the most powerful people don't chase pleasure, they carry purpose. And now, so can you. If this video spoke to you, if even one part of it hit a nerve, share it. Comment below with your experience. Someone else might need to hear exactly what you've lived through. And remember, you are not alone in this. Not anymore. Your power is yours again. Use it wisely.